How is January of 2024 already over? Like, that's actually insane to me. I read 14 books in the month of January, and I literally started this month off with a freaking bang. I read the Foolproof series by Katie Robert. This is in true Katie Robert fashion. They're super steamy, spicy, and just straight to the goods. They're all fairly short. They are standalones, but I do recommend reading them in order. This is a very underrated book series, and if you are a fan of small town romances, especially like Elsie Silver, I highly recommend you checking these out. Book one is Foolproof Love. The tropes in it are bull rider, fake dating, and there's also some adult toy action in there, and if you know, you know. It's great. Book two is Fool Me Once, and the tropes in this are cowboy, fake dating, forced proximity. She's a gamer, which I've never read a female gamer before, so that was a super unique plot to read about. And she also deals with really bad social anxiety, like raise your hand if that's you, because that is me. So I freaking adored her. And it's Hate to Love, Road Trip. This one is probably my favorite of the series, to be honest. The last book in the series, A Fool for You. And this has the accidental pregnancy trope, which I know is not everybody's favorite. So just a heads up there. And it's Second Chance. Then I read Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher, and this is so good. It is fairly long, so I do agree with those who are saying that it could be shorter. It's 530 pages, which is kind of crazy to me, but hey. Some of my favorite tropes, and this is also a billionaire romance, and typically when you read billionaire romances, they're in like a city and whatever, which is fine, but this one is super unique in the fact that it's a small town and he stays in his small town and then he like donates. So we got childhood friends to lovers, literally one of my favorite tropes, and it's such an underrated trope, okay? Forced proximity, there's kitty slaps on the cat, Honestly, Lauren Asher loves her kitty slaps because her Dreamland series also has those tropes. Anyway, one bed, there's also a road trip in this, and I freaking loved the family dynamic between the two main characters' families. It was perfection. The Nanny by Lana Ferguson. This is age gap. He's her boss. False identity, forced proximity, nanny, second chance, single dad. There's some somnophilia in this, okay? Like, what? Look at this cover. Insane. This is between a SW, and she falls in love with the person that she meets online, and they kind of part ways. This is really good. I really liked this one. Sticking with the cute covers, I read Sweet Spot by Rebecca Ginshark. I've never read anything by her. I think her football romance series are really popular, but this one was really fun. She's a golfer. I've never read a golf romance book before. My partner golfs, and I was just a curious little kitten, okay? I got an arc for Irresistible Love by Samantha Chase. I've never read a Samantha Chase before. This is book one in the Wilder Love series, so I felt like I could read her and not be lost. My only gripe with this one is that in the blurb, it's like a sexy, close proximity, secret office, standalone romance. Okay, we're gonna drop the sexy because it is closed door. This had a super cute premise. She's a dancer. She wanted to be a cheerleader. She injured herself, and so she goes back to her hometown to kind of get better. The next one is another underrated book. Okay, this is The Artist Scandal by Regina Black. I believe this is her debut novel. Correct me if I'm wrong. Amazing. Obsessed. This has the cheating trope in it, which I know is not everybody's favorite. Some other people have described it as like, if you like Scandal, then you would like this. I've never seen Scandal. I know I need to. So, married to a politician and he cheats on her. But for those many years, she's like given up a part of herself, right, to put his career first. And he freaking does that. So he betrays her. And then guess what? She finds herself a nice new man. I love it so much. If You Dare by Cressley Cole. It's a historical romance. He is Scottish. Yes, he's Scottish and she is not. And during that time period, they're like kind of enemies, I guess. So it's like an opposites attract, that sort of thing. We've got hate to love, one bed trope. There is a road trip in this, and there's also somnophilia. I guess that was a thing this month. I was honestly kind of expecting this to be a bodice ripper, but it's definitely not. He does really good, even though he wants to rip her bodice, he doesn't. And the tension is really there. And it wasn't a slow burn, but it kind of felt like a slow burn. to me anyway. Shadows and Whispers by Casey Mills. This is definitely going to be a reread for me because it was so freaking good. She is a ballet dancer. We've got an arranged marriage between two families who have opposite it wasn't mafia, but it kind of reminded me of mafia romances where it's like you have two different power dynamics and then they have to meet at a common ground. That way outsiders don't want to fight them and take them down, that kind of thing. I really love how the mental health was, I can't think of the word. The hero of this one has bipolar disorder, and it's done so freaking well. Other people in reviews have said that this is the perfect unconditional love romance, and I highly agree with that because nowhere does she try to make him feel bad for anything, and I love it so much. The Mistletoe Motive by Chloe Leese. This is my first Chloe Leese book. Definitely won't be my last. We've got so much representation within this between the heroine being autistic, demisexual, neurodivergent. We've also got a similar trope as like with the nanny where we have like an online relationship, so a false hidden secret identity kind of thing. So good. And it's kind of like enemies to lovers, hate to love in a sense. They work at this bookstore. He was hired on after her. She kind of feels like he's going to threaten her job position kind of thing. And the two don't mesh very well. Absolutely loved it. This is technically a holiday romance. I checked it out from my library, and so it was on hold until then. And by the time it came up, the blurb, I just really wanted to read it. Anyway. Toxic by Nicole Blanchard. This book started out really strong. It has some of my favorite things to read about. It's dark. The heroine in this one is a nurse, and he is an inmate. She's abused by her husband, and it's pretty fucked up. But the inmate starts giving her this attention that she hasn't seen in a long time, and she tries to hold off. So there is cheating in this, which again, I know is not everybody's favorite trope to read about. It is also an age cap. There's dubious consent in here because she's not sure. She doesn't want her husband to find out and then get in trouble and, all that kind of stuff because he will probably her. This one was insane, and it had me up until I want to say the 60% mark. I was really invested, and then it just kind of, I don't even know what happened. Although, if you like this kind of vibe and this kind of setup, I can't remember the series name, but I highly recommend I Know What Love Is, that duet. Now, it's not a romance, just like this really isn't a romance, in my opinion. It's just like a dark erotica, I guess. The two have very similar vibes, and I really loved that series. Then I ended the month with some fantasy. One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. It is young adult and it's gothic. The perfect time to read this book would be in the fall. Amazing. I loved the world building. I loved the magic. Now, this is a romance fantasy, I believe is how you would say it. So what I mean by that is that this is very heavily relied on the plot and the fantasy elements of this, and then the romance is kind of like second, if that makes sense. Very much a slow burn. The romance doesn't happen until a lot later. There is this curse that has been put on this town. They need these magic cards to collect them, and when they collect them all, maybe they can break this curse. And so that is the goal of this. And like I said, the magic is really coolness. Again, with another fantasy, I read Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This is another one where it is more of a romance fantasy, and the fact that the plot is the biggest and then the romance is second. I feel like, anyway, I don't know, I'm only on book 1, and I think there's 3 books in this series. But this one starts out really cool. It starts out with this statue, and she's praying to this statue. We have this heroine. She's got pink hair. She doesn't really know where she came from, whether it's the north or the south. When she prays to the statue, it actually comes to life, and he asks where she's from. She doesn't know. So I feel like it's gonna lead on to that. I have a theory. She's of importance. Okay, I'm not explaining this good. I think that she is going to get him out of wherever he's stuck at, basically. This is a romance between Evangeline and Jax. Although throughout this, she is not looking at Jax, okay? She's not looking at him, but I know that he's the love interest, so we'll see where it goes. Those are the books that I read this month. I think I had a really good reading month. Have you read any of these? If not, I highly recommend them all.